The voices grow louder and younger. Hundreds of high school students showed their support for Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement, many too afraid to show their faces.
Hong Kong police can do anything they like taking videos of us. So this is to protect ourselves.
So as a journalist, when you're assigned to cover a protest in another country, things can sometimes get ugly. So you've got to have your kit. Here we've got my helmet, my gas mask, and high visibility vest. But here in Hong Kong, instead of rocks and tear gas, we've been met with bottles of water and cooling packs.
This has become a staple of these daily demonstrations, an army of volunteers relentlessly offering free drink and food, profusely thanking other demonstrators for coming and journalists for covering the story. The protesters routinely part like the Red Sea for emergency vehicles, and have even been spotted mopping up after their protests, putting the civil back in civil disobedience.
The behavior of the protesters are quite polite.
Even by Canadian standards. This journalist from Vancouver has lived in Hong Kong for the past few years. He says the protesters took a lesson from last week's violence at the airport that resulted in public anger and a subsequent apology.
They definitely want to maintain the image that it's a peaceful protest, because at the end of the day, if things do get violent on the protester side, they will lose a lot of support.
These demonstrators not only know that the world is watching, they're counting on its support.
We want the international society to understand what we are going on here and do what they can do to help us.
American, British, and Canadian flags are common at these protests. This volunteer says they're symbols of the democracy they're fighting for.
Canadian values or American values, the democracy, which we don't really have here in Hong Kong.
Beijing, meanwhile, is also trying its hand at some international outreach. In an unusual move, the Chinese government sent a letter to dozens of Western news organizations, offering some constructive criticism of their coverage on this story. Beijing says it's been biased, based on selective facts or no facts at all, and it urges journalists to fulfill their social responsibility. In short, a government that rules its own media landscape with an iron fist wants foreign press to do a better job.